line.
You ready to turn up that resonance?
Let's get it.
Welcome, welcome.
Hey, everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode 11. It's the trap of conspiracy and control. But first, let's recap from last week, which was a new way of being. Uh, Baby girl, you want to kick us off?
Yes, a new way of being. It was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome. We were talking about honoring nature. What does that mean to pay attention to the ebb and flow and what that can do for you and having success and accomplishing things. We're talking about rest as restoration. And we were talking about really finding that new way of being in service. Daryl was talking about some taking nighttime seriously. It's a good idea, I think, and voice as survival. So what does that mean? What does that mean? So we got into that. There's a little bit of evolutionary understanding there. There's a little bit of just what it means to be able to speak with impact. So we had a pretty packed episode
Yeah,
in that one.
I actually read some from my book, chapter 8, which was being the blueprint, which goes into really finding yourself first. It's really a process that we aren't taught in our Western society, but it's important process that we have to get to at some point in life. The sooner the better.
Yep, yep. I agree. So here we go. We got to get into what is going to help you be a confident speaker. Okay, I think this is something that's more complicated than you would think it would be, right? I think a lot of people don't understand why they have problems speaking in public. Why do they get so nervous? And there's so many things. Some of them we covered in the last episode of just like evolutionarily why it's so important when we decide to speak up for others or in front of others, like what that means in society. And so what that means to our sense of survival. Why do we tie so much energy to it, right? But it's also about understanding how to focus so that you can allow what you want to come through, right? So the first part of confident speaking, there's so many things I could say about this, but we're going to start with understanding what you want your audience to leave with. If you can stay focused on how you want your audience to feel when they leave, what information do you hope they remember and take away with them so they can apply it to their lives? When you talk about those things that allow you to understand really how you're connecting with them. So why you feel like you're the right person to tell them about that information. That's always helpful. But the most important thing is that you are very clear and have in your body, in your breath, in your system, what you want them to leave with. Okay. And then the second part is your breath. We talk about that pretty much every episode, but it is so important. I know, again, last episode, we were talking about why it's so important. It is, again, a vital element of your body. And to understand that, it's very important, right? And so it does take some understanding to be able to use it efficiently. But as we have practice, the first thing you can do is just breathe out and get in touch with below the belly button. Get in touch with how you're feeling in real time. How does your voice impact yourself? How are you feeling yourself? That's kind of that is one of the key elements to how I teach is how are you feeling yourself? What are you understanding that means for real time impact, right? And then really that's that what that feeling is getting that more nuanced understanding of how that's creating meaningful moments. And so one of the things you can do just for like a lot of my great writers out there, you know what this is. It's when you put the most important piece in the right places so people are picking up on where you want them to focus in writing. Well, it can happen the same way when you're speaking. one of the things that I have to practice more is slowing down when I'm saying the most important piece, right? I tend to kind of keep going, oh, let me get to the next important piece. Oh, I want everything to be important, right? Kind of this proving myself. I have great things to say. I want more to things out my mouth so that you understand how many amazing things I have to say, right? So it gets too much together. So people don't always pick out the gems, right? So you want to know where your gems are so you can slow down and really bring the body in and really amp up that connection so they know that this is an important moment, right? And they walk away with that information, they remember it, they retain it, they apply it much better when we can create that importance and emphasis. So,
It's, it's funny because part of sales training does involve um, speaking with emphasis, um, pausing, like this dramatic pause. And the one thing that I learned very early on in our relationship, when we were still in school studying performance, was I heard someone say, the note you're about to hear has more impact when you focus on the silence in between that note and the last. All music is played between the silence. The next note doesn't really have the impact unless the silence that precedes it is perfectly timed. Yeah, and think about that when you're listening to something, especially something like music, like a song that you play often. Try and focus on places that you don't hear music, and watch how much fuller the sound of the
Next note sounds to
yes, yes. It's very true because those what we call the pauses, so those things in between, I don't really love the idea that we think of them as pauses because there's so much in there. To me, it's the equivalent of that, the darkness of creation, the womb space, right? It's where everything emanates from. So when we are listening in to the vision of the sound, you know, so we're already hearing what we want to happen before it happens. That's when the music happens, right? So I love that you brought that in.
It's funny, one last part was some science team just, well, they found out what we've known for a long time. If you're into spiritual information, is that 90% of the universe is empty space. They want to call it dark matter, ether. We had a conversation about that in episode 7. But it's funny how most of what we see is empty space. It's darkness. It's dark matter. It's almost like the pause in between life.
Yep, yep. Fabulous. So what you got for us on the unking insights?
Okay, this segment of Bunking Insight is sponsored to you by Feel Free Marketing and Consulting, powered by our partners, the team that
helps entrepreneurs move from hustling and survival mode to building systems that truly set them free. Here's the truth: many business owners are stuck wearing every hat: the sales, the marketing, the client follow-up, until burnout steals the dream. That's where Feel Free steps in. With their training, consulting, and AI-powered tools, you don't just grow a business, you build freedom. AI assistants that capture leads and follow up automatically, sales and marketing training rooted in decades of experience, consulting that creates clarity so you can scale with purpose. If you're ready to stop chasing customers and start attracting them, tap in with Feel Free Marketing and Consulting today. You can call them at 559-354-5093. Once again, that's 559-354-5093. And let them help you create a system that gives you back your time, your energy, and your life. Because at the end of the day, freedom just isn't a dream, it's a strategy. So, my unking insight for today. And remember, we're talking about the trap of control, the trap of conspiracy and control. Okay. And what I found to be most interesting when I'm looking at news, and I don't watch a lot of news, you know, I watch more social media news than I do news. um, but I watch things like Redacted. I watch a lot of podcasts that deal in the news. Okay. And it's funny because there seems to be a ton of uncertainty here in 2025. We're living very uncertain times. And so I'm a compare and contrast person. A lot of the things I do is compare and contrast, right? So I started thinking about the time that we're living in and the uncertainty that we're facing, right? And I'm thinking, well, other generations have faced uncertainty. What about the stock market crash in 1923 when there were bread lines and soup kitchens and people starving and waiting online? And then we had the Dust Bowl around that same time. The uncertainty that must have been going through people's minds without technology to tell them that, oh, this happens every 10 to 12 years must have been unbelievable. All right. How about the uncertain times of the Civil War when you're in this country and there's a battle between North and South? And if you're a person of color living in the South, that battle was typically for your freedom. You didn't know how it was going to turn out. You didn't know what was going to happen from one moment to the next. Those were truly uncertain times. So, what I want to talk to you guys about is the fact that uncertain times are based on the times that we're in. They're not really uncertain. We're just confused as to what's next for us. And we're at a very important junction in our time here in this time. We've gone into the time where growing a community is going to be safer than going to the road all by yourself. Okay. We need each other, but we need each other to be in more of a whole state. Right now, we're living in a state where everything is dictated to us through social media, everything's dictated to us through news that doesn't give us accurate information. We're finding out new information about ourselves, about our planet that, is thousands of years old, but we're only getting the information today. These things can create uncertainty. The true certainty that we have is the certainty of who we are inside and ourselves. It's time that we start looking at the outside world and start creating the world we want to see from the inside out. That's truly how we create certainty. Certainty is not going to come from outside of us anymore. We're not going to be certain that we can win a war. We're not going to be certain um, that these times are going to pass us without scathing us. The only time we're going to ever need to be certain and have certainty is within ourselves and what we're creating from the outside in with right action and a right mind. That's your hunking insight.
Fabulous, fabulous. Yeah, I think we've been talking about that a little bit throughout the episodes of just what it takes to be able to really have a sense of yourself and what you want to get done, and especially when things get more complicated or more and I think information can create complexity, right? So we have so much information as Aquarian age that it feels super complex, right? And so the only thing that simplifies that, allows us to create that focus so that we can be impactful, is for us to be clear on ourselves and what we're doing, or what we're about, what we want to bring into the world, right? So I love that. That is the truth, because yeah, there's nothing that you're going to control from the external. Like there's nothing you're going to do that's going to directly affect these things, unless you're in some mighty positions of power, if you're over a couple regiments in the military or something.
Right, it's crazy
It's
because
crazy.
one of the old adages, and I'm Captain Old Adage, is control what you can control. It's actually
It's
it's a prayer for
people who've gone through an addiction It's the sovereignty prayer, I believe it's
Serenity, yeah.
Serenity.
prayer. Lord, grant me the strength to change the things that I cannot change. Um, I think it's something like that. I used to know it by heart. The strength, yeah, it slips my mind. I should have been more prepared for that. But yeah, the Serenity Prayer, look it up, Google it. It's a great prayer that teaches you to really have faith in the things that you can do, as opposed to the things that you have no control over, and the wisdom to know the difference. See, that's really the key, is that these things are bombarding us. They're bombarding us. We have to use wisdom, and you can only get wisdom from gaining knowledge. So when you're listening to something, just realize that if you don't know enough about it, you shouldn't have a feeling about it. If you want to have a better understanding of it, go get the knowledge pertaining to that subject. That way you can sit with that knowledge and gain wisdom on how to move forward.
Yay, I love it. I love it. So it's your time to shine, but we still want to hear from you. We're not hearing a lot from our audience, So yeah.
I have to add this. We're a little low on the numbers from the last episode.
Um,
So 10, a new way of being, maybe it was the title, but we need you guys to really interact with these episodes and give us some feedback so you will have an actual time to shine.
Yes, we do want you on here. So if you have any art, anything that you are doing or you're about, anything, especially anything of service, if you're doing any service within community, um, yeah, or if you just want to come in and tell us about what you're up to, what you're creating, whether that's your business, whether that's a project, we are excited about what you're excited about. So let's have you on here so you can come in and talk about it. We just want to we want to have a community effect here. We want to have
That's the goal.
something that will be something where we can share with each other, and so that we can, like, when we're doing something, that will talk you up, and when we're doing something we can talk you up, right? And so yeah, so that's the thing. That's what we want to get to. So any ideas, if you have any kind of comments, or like to talk about how you think of some of the things that we've been talking about on the episodes, we are up for it. In the meantime, I brought in a question from one of our new consultations. Daryl and I haven't done a combined consultation. It's been a minute. Been a minute. Yeah. So we did a one last week. So within the week. So yeah, so that's another thing. I think we should talk about a little bit about we are a little late with our episode. A lot late, right? One of the things that happened is we tried to do some new technological things. And so we spent hours and hours, and then we did it again today to see if we could get this thing working. So if you feel like we were giving a little frustration energy, that's probably it. That's probably it. Because after another, couple hours trying to get it to work, it's like, oh no, we're back to square one.
We don't have enough technology. More technology than the technology.
And yeah, and even in the audio now, like some of the reads I'm getting are giving me a little anxiety. So that's one of the things that I just want you to know, that we're still working on making it better. So if we have any audio problems this time, just bear with us, turn us up when you need to, turn us down when you need to, and we'll get it together, I promise. And then we have the question. So the question that we got from the consultation is, how do I feel good about this? How do I feel more ease and flow about the choices they're making in their life right now? And so for me, like, the first thing that came up was, and I said it, even though it might have been a little personal, I was like, well, you're gonna have to trust. You're gonna have to trust us. You're gonna have to trust yourself, right? I didn't say the yourself part, but I implied it by what else I said, right? So it's that thing, because what actually creates a sense of ease and flow is not to question everything from the root. This is why it's so useful to do what Daryl was talking about earlier. Have a sense of your knowledge, right, of self. You need to know yourself. You need to have a sense of what you want, where you're coming from, where you're focused on. Again, like we can care, like we can be, human and have feelings and feel bad for people and things and everything. But what you really want to do is have a really clear point of where you're purposefully acting in your life and in your community, because you can't fix 20 problems in your community, but you can probably work on one, right? Just at your level of just being like, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm out there, giving business to local community or like local business, right? I'm going to make sure that I'm doing recycling. I'm going to make sure they're going to do at least one thing. I know that environment is really important to me in ways that it's not important to my friends, in ways that's not important to other people, but it is important to me. And just because other people can't get to it doesn't mean that it's not a priority for me. When you start clarifying those things, you start feeling like everything's your problem, and you can focus on what you want to be doing, right? Um, and so, yeah, so trust is going to speed things up. It's going to help you move faster. The more you know about yourself, the more you're clear about what your choices are, right? You don't have to second guess your choices. You can trust your choices. The more you're clear about the parameters of which you would want to do a project, do some work, bring in a partner, bring in a client, when the clearer you are about what you want, the more you can trust that you found what you want, right? But it's when we have those things that we're not clear on, and then we are like, oh, I have to just trust that they're going to be what I need. No, you know, you don't. You can ask the questions you need to ask. You can find out, like, how many people would trust this person, like all that stuff. That's why recommendations, referrals, all those things are so powerful, because they're like, yeah, no, I've had a good experience with this person. So now you've gotten some background information. So you can always ask for those things, right?
I agree. Um, the way I perceive the question is the way I perceive a lot of questions when I do presentations. People aren't necessarily telling you no, they're telling you they don't know enough. That's where trust does come in. And it's important for you as a person who's offering a product or service to have an idea, a very good idea on how your product and service serve you. So for me, when I heard the question, I thought it was about, I don't know enough. Tell me what you know so I can gain trust in believing that. So that's when your product knowledge,
Having a great understanding of what you're offering to folks really allows them to begin to trust you. Their referrals, reviews, all of those things are extremely important as well when it comes to building trust. And for all my entrepreneurs out there, you have to understand that when folks are looking for someone to bring them service or goods, they want you to know about your service and your goods. And they want to know about the experience that others have had working with you and your service and your goods. Okay. So my response when I heard it, and we have a relationship with this person, so and when you're getting up into that second half of your life, you're my age, and you've been doing things for a long time, your reputation becomes your advertisement. You know, the way you've treated people in the past, the way you've handled your other goods and services working with others in the past, allows you to feel confident when you are talking to someone who knows about your past and knows how you helped them in the past. So it's important to understand that when you're talking to someone and you're into another service and you're into having another product that you want to offer folks, your reputation means just as much as the product. That's why it's important for you to pick the right people to have as your vendors and do the right thing and make sure if you're mailing things that they're mailed in a timely fashion. All of those things make a difference. And so when we got that question, which did, I thought, pertain to trust, but not trust in a way that says, well, I don't know you. I don't know if this is going to work, but trust in, do you trust this product or service that you're offering me? And if you trust it and you've seen results, then I am interested. And that's where we are now. We're in the process of helping them get through the process of onboarding and moving forward. We haven't got the 100% move forward, but knowing this person who's a measured in their decisions, I know that this time that we're waiting is the time that they're literally looking at other options to say, okay, they knew what they were talking about. I will move forward. Now, one other thing as it pertains to this, there's a very famous quote. It's also a song lyric that the quote and song lyric is attributed to the artist Bob Marley in one of his songs, but the quote originated from Marcus Garvey. And I think it's imperative for this episode, it's imperative for this time that we're in, okay? It's imperative for us to understand these things at a level that says, yeah, I know if I did something like this, and here's the quote: emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our own minds. And you might have heard KRS-One mention this quote on some of his reels, but it's a very important understanding to have. We're placed in, I don't care where you're watching from, you're in a colonial system. I don't care where you live, I don't care what country you're in some form of colonialism. Okay? Colonialism isn't horrific from the perspective that you feel like you're in a democratic process, you feel like your word matters. All of those things are true in a colonial process. But until you can remove the programming that they've placed on our minds, it's going to be hard for you to move forward in this new era that we're moving into of knowing. It's hard to know when doubt has been placed as the foundation. So let's emancipate our minds. Let's understand that the only way to get out is to go in. So it's an internal process that frees your outer situation and circumstances. So let's free our minds and get out of this mental slavery because only we can do it. All right. Now, the way we see it, as it pertains to the conspiracy, the trap of conspiracy and control. But before we get to our ideas of how we see it, we asked ChatGTP how they view this episode and this topic. And so Ori says, my chat's name's Ori, conspiracy and control are two rivers leading to the same ocean of distraction. One makes you fear the unseen hand, the other makes you submit to the visible system. Both drain your life force. True sovereignty comes when you stop outsourcing truth to them and start honoring the truth within yourself. The question is not what are they hiding, but what am I ignoring within myself? That's a very, very important distinction. See, someone can give you an idea, but it's up to you to believe it. Okay. And most times we don't even try and contrast what we're really feeling as truth to what someone's idea of truth is. So
Now,
my thought on this subject, it's funny because if we were in the 80s and we had these conspiracies in the 80s, are aliens real? Well, check, no longer conspiracy. Um, does the government hide things and lie to us as a conspiracy? Check, all of these things are real. So all the conspiracies from the 80s have become truths in the 2000 in the 2025. They're now truths. So it's important for us to understand what they mean by conspiracy. Conspiracy means that it's out of the mainstream as truth. All conspiracies have some level of truth to them. Okay. So we have to understand that just the word conspiracy means that there's a level of truth. It's just not mainstream. Now, control is something totally different. Control requires them to occupy your mind. Okay. How do they occupy your mind? Well, they occupy your mind with poisonous foods. They occupy your mind with wars on TV. They occupy your mind with drama. They occupy your mind with all types of chemical trails. And all of these things have an impact because we are biological beings. Now, our biology and the fact that we are biological means that we're sensory based. So if they're occupying our senses with all of this, call it nonsense, all the things that I just mentioned, food, television, atmosphere, all of these things are occupying our mind. That is the control. You see, many people, when you say control, feel like, well, they're not restraining me, they're not putting me in any detention centers. That's not the control that's necessary. They only have to control what's between these 2 points. Because within the if you can control what's in these 2 points, then your behavior can be dictated. See, we've come to a point where this battle that we're facing, this battle of conspiracy and control, is a battle of minds. It's literally who has control of the mind. If you have control of the mind, then you have control of the actions. If you have control of the actions, then you have the person under control.
Yes, yes. I mean, this is huge to me because I feel like the trap of conspiracy control for me came up around this conversation that we were having around how some ladies who are mature, who have had decades of experience in doing intuitive work, energy work, have been doing kind of that intermediary work of being able to help people to have rituals around growing up and their womanhood and their understanding of their lives and other aspects of life, of being able to move into marriage and to being able to move through your death, right? Death experiences of like portals of coming in and out of life, right? Um, so a lot of these women have been doing this work for decades and decades, and it's been called, well, everything from woo-woo to just not real health, not real medicine, not real impactful, right? Like all of those things. So they have had this understanding that there has been a conspiracy. There was literally a campaign to discount all natural medicine and applications of natural understandings that women have been midwifing for generations. And so that campaign was literally called, like they told you to call all things that like that woo-woo, which is why a lot of people don't even use that terminology anymore, because they understand it's kind of like the same way they coded people of color to certain types of derogatory names, right? There's this plan to make you feel like less if you are doing these things, having these practices, helping people with these things, right? So that you can't make any real headway. You're not going to be able to make the income a doctor would make just because you know generations of information of how to bring children into the world, right? So um like those are the things that were very real systems of oppression, very real systems of limitation that are happening. And that's just one aspect of it, because we all know there are systems around people of color as well, right? And so when we understand that, that's not saying that, and we're talking about manifestation, it's not discounting those things. It's understanding that if we are allowing it to believe that we can't accomplish or experience the things that we want to experience, then that's when they have done their work. They've done their job, which is what Daryl is talking about. There's another flip side to this, is that a lot of us, in order to cope with those things or cope with other aspects of just not having the same level of authority in society, which comes from an automatic trust. So people that are automatically trusted tend to be more of the mainstream people, like not they're not minorities, or they're not, you know how it is. It's like basically an adult white male is automatically trusted unless they make themselves sleazy or something that makes you feel like you don't trust them, right?
Patreon.
That's usually the kind of thing. And then there's kind of other forms in their places that we're okay with seeing, but if they're somehow different than how we're used to seeing them, then we have to question it, because we're not clear if it's that they have that same level of authority, right? And so it just, when it's automatic, it creates ease, right? If you automatically trust people, just, you know, they're clean, they have nice clothes and a nice car. So now you feel like you can automatically trust them. It makes it much easier for them to start a conversation with you, start a relationship with you, start a service with you, all of those things, right? And so when we realize that in a lot of ways, we're trying to control our impact by being the good girl, by having these certain things show up in the way that we want people to give us that automatic, right? They want us, like, we want to be more likely to get the automatic. So anything that we're doing to manipulate that automatic is us feeling like we need to control the external. It comes from the same problem. If we're believing that the external is in making it so that we can experience something, or we feel like the only way we're going to experience something is to exert ourselves on the external. That's the trap. That is the trap, because those things are limited in themselves. And then you're still coming from a mindset and an energy vibrational space that says, I am less. Whether that's, again, just because of the perception you've taken on from somebody else, right? So that's the trap. So yes, we need to acknowledge these things. We need to express the emotion that comes up around the frustration, resentment, anger, any of that's happening. We do not want to ignore it. We want to process it. We've been learning more and more about processing emotions lately, Daryl and I. But it's also about coming from that original initial framework. I know what I'm here for. I know what I have to offer. I'm excited about being of service, of being of help, of being in the experience of these things. And I have what I need. I have the support of spirit, universe, God, to be able to allow that to happen and create that through my life, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's really subtle. It is such a propaganda campaign that really has us disconnected from self. And I think if we could ever get to the
I am.
scratch all of that, it was just a pause. Now these next words are way more impactful.
So tell us how you think about these things. How do you navigate your experiences of frustration? What are you doing that allows you to live in the truth of your creation and not in the systems that make us feel like we have to conform to those ideas of what is automatically acceptable, and or how are we allowing ourselves to create in, around, through, under, above any kind of limitations that are happening. I know there's some great, I'm so blessed to be connected with Penelope Jane Smith. So if you see anything from Penelope Jane Smith on my channel, she's amazing. And she talks about financial freedom, and she gives like real honest tools that everyone can use. And I think it's things like that that will help us to bridge gaps where there have been fences built, right? And so, yeah, so what are your secret weapons? What are you using? What are you having? Again, we want that to be part of our community so that everybody has the full access that I like to call freedom and prosperity, right? That we are free to pursue our happiness, and that we are creating prosperity, which prosperity to me again means that I'm prosperous and everybody who's connected to me is prosperous by affiliation, right? Just by being in my field, in my circle, in my community, your life will be better because I'm going to create an environment of nurturing that allows for that, right? And so, yeah, so if you have any of those tools, if you are that tool, if you are the person that's going to help us understand those things on a way that creates more freedom and prosperity in our lives, then please, please, please connect in. We would love to hear from you.
One more quote. This one's from Shakespeare. All the world is a stage, and men and women are merely actors.
Okay.
You have to understand, guys. We're creating this world stage. Play your part.
Yeah, that's the thing. I always like, I'm such an authenticity nerd that, I get when people don't want to play, right? So I totally am not into the whole, you know, like act like it. What do they call it? Fake it till you make it. I'm not into that. But you can try on the ways of being that are available to you, right? And there's some characterizations, there's some playing out that you haven't tried yet. You haven't tried yourself in that role yet. But if you know that it's something you desire, then it is in your path, and you can play yourself into it. You can see how you shape your personality comes to be in that new role, in that new service, in that new way forward, right?
It's funny because there's an adage that says, be, do. Okay? Meaning that whoever you want or what you want to accomplish encompasses a being, right? You might know the word is embodiment, but you have to be or embody what you want, who you want to be. Okay. And then you do the things that you want to be. I want to be a doctor. So I have to do the things that allow me to be a doctor. Then you will have the privilege of being a doctor. So it's always be, do, have. So be that being. Do the things that that being is. And you'll have the things that that being has.
Right. Yeah, and that's my work. Is that essentially is that when I'm working with people, that's part of what we're doing. Is we're seeing what we want to become, and it doesn't have to automatically mean the automatic, right? The automatic loudest person in the room gets the most attention. The automatic, all those kinds of ideas does not have to be the way that you move forward, the way you lead, the way you speak, right? So it's really just about acknowledging, oh yeah, I don't want to be that. I want to be this. And the clearer we are on those things, it's like, okay, you don't automatically become that just because you become a leader. You don't automatically become the thing you don't want. You get to decide who you be as you do it, right? And so you'll get to know yourself as a leader. You'll get to know yourself as a business owner, and being able to have some foundational work to be able to start bringing that together to have a sense of what that feels like and then embodying it and training it into the system, that's the voice work. So that's the Oman's method. Again, I'm always going to mention it, is that it's on this channel. You just have to go to the voice lessons series for that, to start getting some of that starting information on what it means to embody through my method. So that's what we have for you today, right?
Yeah, let's get
Us a
quick.
here
From here.
there. Recap this episode.
Yes, I love this episode. This is really about how are we really doing the thing? How are we really showing up in the real space where we're acknowledging that there are systems of limitation? How are we really going to understand ourselves in a changing society and changing government, changing financial situations, and not negate our desires of what we want to create because of our external experiences. So I think it was such a nice combined yeah, message.
Yeah, we do have to be careful. We have to be careful with a lot of this information, guys. There's so
Disinformation. Um, there's so many roads that lead you off the path, and we really have to be mindful. And so this episode to me was about, um, let's get mindful. Let's see what can happen when we do things with intentionality, when we really go for being what we want to have. Okay. So yeah, this was awesome. I really appreciate you guys being here, being a part of our growing community. Um, and like I said, we'd really love to hear some feedback. We'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. We'd love to, even if you have a song, if you wrote a poem, hey, send it in. Talk to us. Come be a part of our community.
Fabulous, fabulous. I love it. We're always doing these amazing things and moving forward into our futures that we are building together. So remember, your voice is a portal and use it with power.
your presence is the product.
Let it sell it.
That's
Much
right. Much love, y'all. See you next time.